Bitcoin or a classic car? That's the big question tonight. Are prices going up on classic cars on BAT just like crypto is? Holy cow. 90 grand for a Bitcoin? What is going on? This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. Yeah, buddy, we are not crypto bros. We're going to dip into that just a little bit. My name is John Polnik. This is Bid Nerds. We are coming to you live from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, who is right over there. Right there. There he is. He's in San Francisco. He looks like he's right there, but it's actually 600 miles away. Thanks for joining us live. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you went way past it. You went way past it. This is getting a little weird. This is a live show. Usually we're on Wednesday nights. We're doing it Thursday. So for the nerd fans and the nerd herd that might not know what's going on, sorry to mess the schedule up tonight, but we're going to do it anyway. Michael Deeb, what's going on in San Francisco?
Wait, today's not Wednesday? I told everybody today was Wednesday. What is going on? I just put my garbage cans out. I'm going to be in big trouble. I don't know, man. This is all screwed up. Hey, tell everybody, how was the Grant a Gift Gala? I understand you took the night off to hang out at the Raiders Stadium. Did you score any touchdowns or catch any? Was it a Macan reveal? Was it good? Was it a good event?
God and Porsche was revealing their not classic, what am I saying? Their brand new Macan EV at the same time that they were doing a Grant a Gift Gala to raise money for autism awareness and help and all that kind of and research and stuff. Great work. An amazing event. Look, I'm not I love football. I live here in Vegas, but I'm not a Raiders fan. And I certainly don't like, what's his name, Davis? What's his name? The owner?
Yeah, Mark Davis.
Mark Davis. That haircut. Come on, I'm out, buddy. But I have new respect for that guy. I got to give him props. I got to give him thumbs up. What we saw last night was unbelievable. Godden Porsche donated a brand new Macan EV for the auction. So it was a live auction, 1,000 people on the field in the stadium, this big gala event. And there was the new Macan EV is about $100,000 retail.
Yeah, it's $100 grand.
This thing skyrocketed up to $190,000.
Wow.
And Mark Davis was the one that bought it. He won the auction.
That's awesome.
And when they gave him the microphone, it was classic. He was like, hey, it's not black or silver, and I don't really drive EVs, so I'm going to let someone else take it, but I'm paying for this one. It's back up for auction again. So he put it right back on the floor.
Yeah.
Paid for it and they auctioned it again, and it again brought $190,000. It was just an amazing story. And then there's one more story I got to share with you guys because it really was awesome.
That's $380 grand for a Macan EV.
For one EV Macan, right? that they were able to sell twice, right? So the best story of the night was just a tearjerker. Like I've never seen anything like this. You guys, this is incredible. They auctioned a golden doodle dog, a puppy, right? This dog is like he was full grown, but maybe not full grown, but just the cutest, most adorable little golden doodle dog. And the foster girl was wheeling him around in a little Red Ryder kind of wheelbarrow or wagon thing, right? And everyone is like just everybody's patting the dog and squeezing him. And this little dog is just like, yeah, this is great. I love people. I mean, thousands of people in this place and noises and flashing lights and all this stuff. And this dog was just totally chill, loving all the attention. The auction started on that. Yeah. And I mean, a golden doodle, you can get one for what, $4 or $5 grand or something like that from a breeder. If you go that route, which I don't recommend, save a dog from a shelter. Don't shop. Yeah. But, so they're auctioning this dog. This dog, $50,000, Deeb.
No way.
Back and forth. And you know who was bidding on the dog? It was between, I don't know, some lady. It got up to like 20 and everyone was like, that's it. And then it was like 22, 24, 25. The person who kept bidding on it, Deeb, was Gary Ackerman. He is it's his gala event, right? It's the Ackerman Foundation. His son has autism, right? So he's just like bidding this thing up, and everyone, and just like, you're like, no way is it go $30,000, $50,000. Finally, he got the dog, and everyone's like, geez, Gary wanted this dog. Apparently, did he know the dog or whatever? And he's like, this is really great. The dog is sweet, but the young lady, I don't recall her name. Let's call her Susan, has been taking care of this dog for the last 3 months, and she's in love with this dog. It's her dog now.
Oh,
not a dry in the house, man. This girl screamed. She yelled like she didn't have a microphone. Everybody in the whole stadium knew. It was amazing. Wow. I got it on camera. It was just like, it was so cool. So the dog was happy. Foundation's I mean, just what a cool. I'm tearing up a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's really good. Good story, JP. Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. That is incredible. Gary's such an amazing guy. Really, and stories like that, obviously, you'd have to be dead and without a pulse to not feel something when you hear stuff like that. You and I are both dog guys, so that story hits. That's really great. Good. I'm glad you were there for that. And, of course, a big thank you to the Nerd Herd for giving us one day to push the show to tonight so JP could record all that professionally for the foundation and Forgotten. So awesome that they called on you, their favorite son, to do all that. I'm sure you'll have a sizzle reel some point in the future that you might be able to share with us. JP, we've got some really cool cars to cover and try to make sense of this new world we're living in where crypto is setting all-time highs. Are we going to start to see the car market pick up? There's some interesting results that will maybe help us decipher the truth in all this. What do you think, John? You ready to go?
Let's do it. What's the first car on the list?
All right, we are going to circle right back to the deja vu car from last episode. The car that we're talking about, JP, is this 1998 Porsche 993 Carrera S Coupe that is on P-Car Market, showing 3,600 miles from new. Now, if this car looks familiar to you, that's because 2 weeks ago, we covered this car when it was on Bring a Trailer, where the car, we covered it, and the car was bid up to $227,000, and it failed to sell at that number on 38 bids. JP, if I remember, your bid was like somewhere between 250, 270, and I think we also had Whitlock from Stuttgart Market Letter. I think he was 250. You were like 270, and I was over 300. I was really betting on the miles and the collector condition. But John, when we revisited this car a second time, you talked about taking a little deeper dive to uncover that this car doesn't really run or drive. I mean, they drove it for the driving video, but this car hasn't been operational in years. You're gonna have to spend thousands of dollars to service this car and get everything up to date. And you and I both agreed that the service bill to do this correctly, to get this car reliably and safely running again, could be in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 easy. And with that number in mind, a lot of people were wondering why they didn't take the $227,000 that it hammered for on Bring a Trailer. So did we have sort of an unrealistic seller? The car is now on P-Car Market, second time around. 227 was the last hammer. JP, I jumped in and said that I thought this time around the car would fail to sell at just over 200. So my number was $205,993, short of the 227 on BAT, and certainly not selling at that number. John, you took the under by about $7,000, giving us the bid of $193,300. And then classic.com says that the average selling price for a Carrera 2S with a manual is just 146,000 miles, but that's going to be a used car. This car is still basically brand new because it's only got 3,600 miles on it. JP, our car hammered for $230,500, where it failed to sell on 30 bids. So it basically got $3,000 more than it did last time around. The big news here is now the car remains available through P-Car Market in the deal tank, what we call the chum bucket, for $270,000. So, John, there's the ask at $270,000. Whitlock talked about the car being a $250,000 value. I'm going to contest and say if we consider that you and I might be speculating correctly and that it's going to take $25,000 or $30,000 to get this car roadworthy, then $270,000 might be the number, less the 30 grand you have to spend to get this car roadworthy. So I actually think that the value on this car is probably now somewhere in that $240,000 to $245,000 range, which is right where Whitlock offered it to us when he was on the show with us first time around on this car. At 270, I think that's ridiculous. But if I was going to make an offer on this car, I would start at like 238, 240, something like that, a little higher than where it hammered on PCAR Market. JP, what do you think the real value of this car is? And are you surprised by the result or the ask in the deal tank? I don't think the ask in the deal tank is unfair, but he's going to have to pick up the tab on the servicing. If the servicing is going to be up to me, then he's going to have to concede from 270. What do you think? Would you see it differently than that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this car is necessarily not worth that. I think just the presentation twice in a row, same assets, not fixing the problems from the first listing. Everyone referenced this car, and you know, I ish all over PCAR Market often. But one thing I will give them on this listing, yeah, nobody's noticed that ever before.
I noticed.
Hey, but no, credit where credit is due. People in the comments in this listing mentioned the Bring a Trailer listing and even put the link in their comments. So yeah. It was possible. So anyone looking at this car, anyone seriously considering it, of course, is going to go ahead and read the comments. And there was an ton of drama on the first listing on Bring a Trailer. It doesn't surprise me that this car made a little bit more money on PCAR Market, but let's face it, it's really nominal, right? It's within the margin of error. Another $3,000, big whoop. That's not enough to move the needle. If it were within $3,000 the first time around of the reserve, BAT would have just covered it, right? So that clearly another $3,000 over what it brought last time isn't going to move the needle unless the seller had some kind of come to Jesus moment between then and this listing. And I think that's pretty much what everyone was hoping for when it came to bidding on this car. I don't think anyone thought that this thing was going to get 270 this time around. They just figured, well, maybe the guy brought it back up just because he just figures he's got to do it. He's taking a Hail, or it's just a Hail Mary pass. Why not? The problems from the last listing that were noted were things like, you know, the weird badge on the back that isn't the right one, the current, and which wouldn't even be that big a deal if the current seller didn't specifically say that the car needs nothing and they didn't do anything to it between the time that they bought it from the last dealer and then to now when they're going ahead and trying to flip this car. In fact, they were representing the car as the originality of things that needed to be replaced on this car were listed as a feature rather than a bug, like the faded rock guards, a number, stuff like that, where that's stuff that you should upgrade. But okay, fine, you didn't touch it. Then why'd you put a new badge on it that wasn't even the right badge? I mean, right. At the very least, I think if you're going to try to sell this car and you failed miserably the way they did the first time around, what they should have done is the second time around. The other thing, too, everybody keeps talking about is these darn 17-inch wheels. They're not you could order these wheels for the car in period. Great. Terrific. Fine. Get a set of 17-inch 18-inch twists, and put them on the damn car and take new assets, take new photos, and then have a picture of the original 17-inch wheels sitting in the corner. The tires on these are the original tires, which is kind of cool, but they're certainly not tires you'd want to drive on. They're 20-something years old, right?
Dangerous.
And straight up dangerous. You don't necessarily have to incur the cost of getting this car up to full, streetable with all the service that we were talking about. You just need to make it safe, make sure the brakes are good, it's not leaking anything, and the tires aren't going to explode the second you take it on a real road. And then it's up to the next owner to say they're going to put the car in a museum or go ahead and drive it around and get it to road worthiness. So yeah, I think this car could absolutely be a car that has an upside in the near future. Would I buy this if you could actually get this car at $230,000 or $240,000 and then do a couple of those things, I think it could appreciate at least as much or more than a single Bitcoin. So I would say buy this car if you could buy it at this price. But at $270,000, this car's sitting there until someone does all the things and gets it up to snuff. And at the very least, new assets. This car's burned for the season. We'll probably see it this spring. But what do you guys think of the results of this beautiful little 98993 C2S with super low miles to the point that no one's ever going to probably drive it? Let us know in the comments. Would you buy one of these, or would you buy crypto if you were trying to hedge your bets? Let us know. All right, we got another car that we made a prediction on the last episode. What do we got?
All right, JP, we're going to check in on our 2000 Ferrari 456M GTA that Doug DeMuro was peddling on Cars and Bids. John, our car is on a clean Texas title located in Dallas and showing just 25,000 miles from new. I credit this car for being one of the highlights during the Luca de Montezemolo era of presiding over the Ferrari company. This is a front-engine V12 with just two-wheel, rear-wheel drive. But the big news here is that this one has got an automatic 4-speed rather than the gated 6-speed manual that would have come on, most of the other cars, and certainly a lot like a 550 Maranello. This would have been sort of the Grand Touring or the more pedestrian version of that car, but certainly a lot of fun to drive. Pretty car. This one's got a few little modifications. And JP, I just wondered, with the automatic transmission, the mods, and being on Doug DeMuro's site with terrible photos like that one right there, if this car wouldn't struggle just a little bit. So with that in mind, JP, we credited Classic.com for telling us that the average selling price for an automatic version of these is around $53,800. I took that number and worked my way backwards through the modifications, and I think sort of the lesser platform for trying to peddle a Ferrari. So I went $45,600. To my surprise, JP, you went way underneath me at just $39,456. And then, of course, the bigger surprise was that this car hammered for $57,500 where it's sold on 44 bids, making sure that you and I eat a little bit of crow as we open this show. So, JP, is that a result of sort of the spike in the economy that people are being a little cavalier with their used Ferrari money on Cars and Bids? Just the concept of buying an automatic transmission Ferrari with oversized wheels from Doug DeMuro, and somebody paid over the median price. What is going on out there? What, people, wake up, man. Like, this is going to cost you some money. Holy God. I think somebody's in for a rude awakening. I think they overpaid for that car, and I don't think ownership of that car is going to be cheap.
Gerd missing a Yachty by $500. Constantly in the race for Nerd of the Year. Lots of new nerds hanging. I think this Thursday night thing is bringing some new people in. So welcome to those of you who are watching for the first time and are commenting in the Nerd Herd in the comment section. If you are watching live and this is your first time, make sure you introduce yourself over there. Great folks in the Nerd Herd. Yeah, I think what's that? Go ahead, dude.
Shout out to Chris Carbine, who is essentially our effing den mother in the Nerd Herd. Chris is welcoming everybody, and we love Chris and thank him for the way he treats everybody. I mean, almost on our behalf, but he really does represent himself. Thank you, Chris, for he really does preside over that thing, JP. And the show wouldn't be the same without Chris Carbine from New Orleans. Thank you, Chris, for being you.
Chris is like the greeter at Walmart.
Totally.
For bid notes. He's doing the job. He's doing the work. Thank you, sir. I think this car, I think that we're in the season of optimism right now. I'm from Seattle. I grew up there, and none of the sports teams were ever any good when I was a kid, except for maybe the Sonics in the late 70s or whatever. Yeah. But pretty much
Detlef Schrempf.
Yeah, rooting for the Seahawks or the Mariners was just a fool's errand. And the beginning of baseball season in April was what we called the season of optimism. In that first couple of months, they would start winning and everyone would be like, oh, this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year. Then, June rolls around and it's like, oh yeah, no, they still suck. And you just kind of go back to not paying attention to it. I think right now we are in that season of optimism. Whether or not the economy is going to go the way of the Mariners in the 80s, or if it's going to see a championship run, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. But I do think that it's pretty likely that we're going to see some inflation coming. And I think the big question is, will that increase prices? I mean, I know that by definition, that's what inflation is, right? But as those prices go up, you shrink demand and then prices go back down. I'm a little concerned about things like stagflation, where you get increased prices, but demand goes down and nobody can afford to lower their prices, but they can't afford to pay the high prices. So prices just kind of like linger in that high place. We've got a lot. Like, would you buy a car like this, Deeb? And how do you feel about all the classic cars that we love to own, even if the economy improves? If things like, I don't know, tariffs come into play and they start making it more and more difficult to get Porsche classic parts, which are made in Germany and other places around the world, a Ferrari like this, I can't imagine it's going to get any easier to get parts for something like this. I'm more concerned about just being able to keep something like this on the road. Never mind the price, because the price really wasn't that much. 57 grand. I mean, the average Honda is more than that.
I've got a little bit for you, and that is, you and I are friends with our buddies Sahan, John, and Yuri, and these three guys have a text chain going, and they are shopping every car that comes to market, and they have John Polnik taste in, like, they love rehabilitating these, like, almost great cars that need a lot of love. And Sahan and Yuri are both of the mindset that, like, yeah, pick that up and then we could do the wheels and the suspension and we'll put a new motor in it. And so they're just shopping cars like crazy. I love the energy and the passion, and I have as many crazy wild hair ideas up my sleeve as they do, or sometimes you do. But I would say today, JP, to the broader scope of our audience, that unless you're in the industry and can navigate all these, uncertain times and whatever may come our way, I would basically recommend to most people that you should buy a car that's done. And John, you have said this for years. Don't go restore a car yourself. Let somebody else restore it. Realize they can't afford to keep it. They got to get off of it. And if they restored it for 200, you might be able to pick it up for 120. Or if they restored it for 100, you might be able to pick it up for 65 or 70. Be the guy that's the second one, and you will get the greater value. And I just think letting somebody else do all the hard work and get that car that's complete would be your best hedge against an uncertain future in the short term. JP, what do you think of that?
Well, I want to shout out to Nerd Herd member Philip Craig. Apparently he bid on this car. Bro, right on, dude. What was where did you dip out? I could go back and look, but let us know where you dipped out. He's saying he feels like he's going to have regrets for not stepping up for it. Look, we talked about it on the last episode. This is a beautiful car, not a lot of money to get into a Ferrari. We're all scared about the maintenance costs of keeping this on the road, but I got to think, Philip, maybe you can tell us what your perspective is, but whoever bid on this car, that's probably not their only classic car. You got to think it's one of a number of other things in kind of a cool garage. And this would be a great car to have sitting there that you take out on special occasions or certain types of occasions where you don't really like. I would love to cruise down the Las Vegas Boulevard Strip in a car like this, because it really doesn't matter how it handles. It's an automatic. It's just a kind of baller on a budget Ferrari, and you gotta love. I'm sure it's just lovely to sit behind the wheel and be in that cockpit, as long as you can get home without having to call the AAA. But yeah, Philip, let us know what your top number was. We're curious about that, and let us know what you guys think this car is worth. Do you think this car is a good investment? Do you think it's going to appreciate like Philip does? Or do you think you should put your money into Bitcoin or some other crypto? Let's move on. We have another car that we made a prediction on the last episode. Dee, before you get to that car, guys, some of the people were mentioning that that the audio levels are a little low for us tonight. So I'm going to try to adjust that a little bit, but let us know how we're coming through. Are we at least even between my partner Deeb and I? Let us know in the comments, and I'll see if I can do something about that. But all right, let's move on. What was the next car on the list?
Thank you to the herd for keeping us in line. JP, we kind of our buddy Zach Miller sent to us a car that he was representing on Sotheby's Motorsport auction site, and that is this stunning 1989 Porsche 911 Speedster showing just 95 miles on the odometer from new. The car is the seller of the car ultimately is Graham Rahal. Graham pedals in a lot of really uber cool, expensive, exotic toys. And this vintage Speedster is kind of classic from him. Zach Miller sort of does what I do, and he's representing the car for Graham on Sotheby's. And JP, you know, the Speedster is an iconic car from the era for Porsche. It is the last and perhaps the greatest G-body they ever made. And this one is exceptional with the unbelievably unused odometer. Heartbreaking that nobody will ever go and really drive this car, but stunning to see one that basically looks like it's sitting on the showroom floor in these incredible studio photos. So Zach, thank you for sending us the car. It's great fun to take a stab at one of these. John, I was saying that classic.com suggests that the average selling price for an 89 Speedster, a one-year only Speedster, is around $213,000. But this one on this platform with that odometer and from that seller, I thought would break 300,000. So my bid was 305. JP, you took a very narrow under at just $300,911. John, were you surprised by the result? Our car went just a little over us. It hammered for $325,500 where it sold, JP, on 58 bids. I mean, don't tell me Sotheby's Motorsport is still building their site. That is a ton of action, and obviously they have the money. I would say that that is absolutely representative of a full retail number for that car. Somebody paid a buyer's premium on top of that. So that, you know, it's a lot of money spent for the vehicle, and perhaps worth it because, you know, it's a sub 100-mile odometer. It's basically peerless in the secondary or collector market. Surprisingly, JP, it's not the highest price paid for an 89 Speedster in the last 12 months. Earlier in the year, I think it was March, which would line up with Amelia Island, it seems, according to the Stuttgart market letter, that somebody paid $357,000 for one in the spring. So, JP, in this market, 325, I still say, is representative of all the money. How do you decipher that result?
Well, I am trying to decipher it because we've got Zach Miller in the chat. Welcome, Zach. Always good to hear from you. He is the person who sold this car. He was representing it for the
he's
owner.
Correcting me too.
Yeah. So 310 was the sale number, and we hit with the hammer, and then all the fees. It got up to 325 and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Look, this site is not for me, man. My opinion is F this site. I freaking hate the Sotheby's site, but I'm not baller, right? Like I'm not hoity-toity. They didn't build it for me, right? Because I go to this site and like I don't even know what it went for. You said, what did you think of the results of this? I went to look at the results the other day and you can't see because I'm not signed up for this site. Right. And I think that's just BS that they don't have the results unless you're signed in. And I'm not going to go through the trouble because I just feel like there's just barriers, and those barriers are there for a reason, to keep dirtbags like me out. Right. I'm not bidding on a $300,000 car anytime soon. So it's a way to keep the riffraff out. And I just feel like this site does a really good job at reminding all of the casual viewers of the platform that you, in fact, are riffraff, unless you are that pinky in the air buyer who is the person who bought this car, who also F you, because this car is just going to go into a collection and sit there and never be driven. Again, congratulations, Zach. I love you, brother, and I'm glad you were able to get the money for the seller and, do right by them, and hopefully that does well by you as well. But I just hate everything about this thing. I just hate the car's beautiful. The guy who's representing the car is great, but it's just gross. It's just gross to me. This car should be driven.
So let's talk about one more thing, because you brought up a good point. You don't like interfacing with the site, and the site obviously has like a big perimeter fence that you either have to be in the club or you just read about it in the papers. But like, if you're the guy that's shopping or can afford a car of their nature, do you care if the interface with the platform is poor, or do you care more about having access to, quote unquote, Sotheby's, client base, because that's ultimately what.
Well, I think I was pretty clear about that. It wasn't made for me, clearly, right? And am I bitter? Probably a little bit. Yeah. If I had the money to go buy $300,000 cars that I don't even want to drive ever, I wouldn't want to be hanging out with riffraff like me either. I mean, who would? So yeah, I'm salty about it. But I look, it's built for a specific clientele, and clearly it's working. So that's why I think I'm being pretty transparent when I say that I don't like it, but that's because it's not made for me. It's made for someone else. And I don't relate with people who buy cars purely for these investments and to never drive. I mean, have I bought a car to flip and sell and make money on? Of course. But I always drive them. I always love them. And I just feel like the people that are buying stuff like this, they don't feel like car enthusiasts to me. And again, it doesn't have to be for me. I'm not saying that Sotheby's should change the way they do business to make some dirtbag like me happy. Do what you got to do and sell the cars. That's what you're there for. But you're a different clientele than I can relate to. But I kind of revel in being in that dirtbag world. So anyways, there you go. I mean, look, but one thing that is relevant to the topic of today's episode is this is a $310,000 car plus. It has no miles. This was clearly purchased as an investment. And an investment only. No one is driving this car. So is this, if you had $310,000, let me put it out to the nerd herd. Would you buy, 3.5 Bitcoin? Or, I don't even think you get 3.5, whatever. Would you buy the $310,000 equivalent of Bitcoin? Or would you buy this card? Which do you think would be a better investment over the short term and the long term? Let us know in the comments, because that's what this is about. Honestly, I think in the short term, probably Bitcoin's definitely going to perform better, because we're probably going to see some pretty big, crazy spikes and valleys here over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, depending on how the economy shakes out. This Porsche in the long run might be the better investment. I don't know. If I were selling this car, I would certainly accept Bitcoin. I don't know about you guys for it, but there it is. Have any of you guys sold a car for crypto? I'd like to hear if anybody, by the way, Deeb, like I own Bitcar. I own a bunch of crypto, like car related URLs that I haven't really done anything with. I think it was So it might be time. It might be time to go back and start doing that again. Anyways, let us know what you guys think. And we have a bunch of cars to make predictions on, but we're going to do that right after this. Stick around, guys. Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Godden. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, is Anthony hanging out with us tonight? I think we confused him because we're on a Thursday night. He's had a bunch of stuff going on lately. Shout out to Anthony from Our Smiths.
Anthony plays bingo with all the blue hairs in Boise on Thursday night or something like that. And Ross Churchhouse wants to let you know that when you missed the show last night, you pushed it off till Friday for him because he's in New Zealand. It's already Friday. Thank you, Ross, for watching. It's great I'm glad we didn't lose him completely. That's awesome.
Love having Ross around. He is the OG Nerd Herd. Get in there, guys, if you haven't already, and hang out in the Nerd Herd. Hey, Derek Whitaker's hanging out with us tonight.
What's up, Derek?
He says he missed us at Radwood. We missed Radwood this year. I always think of Radwood, LA in December, but the last couple of years it's been off. It was better when you could go to, they had it the same weekend as the International Auto Show. So we could go and do like 2 or 3 other events at the same time. That would have been kind of cool. But we got to find her. We might make our way out to LA at the end of this month. I can't say why Actually, I almost ruined it on the air.
You did.
I almost blew it. But I do have an event
that blew up the world.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. But yeah, let's do it. All right, guys. We've got some predictions. What's that?
Somebody let Derek Whitaker know. I don't think he would fit in a Lamborghini Countach. Like, I know he wants one, but he'd have to change the seat. I think he's too tall. He's got too much torso.
Countach or Bitcoin? Derek says Bitcoin, the highest mileage one he could find. All right. I know a couple of Fiero ones built on Fieros that they've got high miles and they look like a Countach. You can buy that for a fraction of a Bitcoin. Okay. Zach Miller. I would buy that car, talking about the Speedster, and mile it the fuck up if I had that kind of money. Good on you.
Zach.
Love that, excellent. Zach. All right. A-okay. All right. What's the first car on the list? Let's make some predictions. What do we got?
All right, JP, our hero car of the evening is a single-family owned 1993 Mazda RX-7 R1 package car, 5-speed manual. I think the R1s, I think they only came manual. But this car only has 44,000 miles. It's out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And JP, our car is on Bring a Trailer. John, the car belongs to, I believe, the son at the moment, and it was his father's car or her father's car, if I have this incorrectly, because she's talking about the listing first person. But it was dad's car. He had it, serviced it, and now it's the seller's this seller's offspring that is selling it. But anyway, very cool car. It's been in the same family the whole time. Only 44,000 miles. The big news here, JP, is that it's all stock. It looks like most of the services are up. They do note that it needs a couple of little things, but nothing that would be untoward for a used car. But JP, it's an R1 package car. So this isn't quite like GT3 spec, but to make an R1 out of this generation of the RX-7, you got Alcantara seats, you got a big aggressive front air dam, you got higher speed rated tires, you got working brake ducts to cool the car, the rear wing. I know that you got different suspension tuning. What else can I tell you they did? Limited slip differential. A lot of special things. Front shock tower support, like a shock tower thing. Twin oil coolers. I mean, they did a lot to make this a track car. Now, the motor is the same spec, but the rest of the car is more aggressive for driving. And if you really wanted to truly drive the snot out of your 255 horsepower RX-7, the R1 was the way to go. In period, JP, it's hard to imagine that somebody would have said at the dealership, oh, the R1 is too firm for the street. It's like a race car. It's not that much firmer, and certainly not by today's standards where, a GT3 will lift a front wheel going in and out of your driveway. But this is a really cool car, and by the numbers, I think these cars are worth more money. Now, with that in mind, I immediately have to put on my, jerk hat and say that the presentation of this car is deplorable. Clearly, somebody parked the car in an empty driveway and shot photos with your cell phone, which is fine if you're selling a mode of transportation on cars and bids. But when you have a truly unique, excellent provenance Mazda RX-7 with the rare R1 package and low miles and it's all stock, I'm just saying that whatever this car hammers for, I'm going to say he left 5% on the table by not enlisting the help of a professional photographer at the very least. But this car should have gone to somebody like Matt Crandall and 911R, where they could have really done this car up and done a much better job bringing the car to market. JP, I would say that the few little knickknacks that they mentioned, I think it was tires and like the knob is missing from the stereo. Look, man, go fix all that stuff. Go spend $1,000 on your car. Spend another $200 or $300 on photography. Spend $1,500 on it, including a detail, and go get yourself $8,000 more money for the car. This is a really special car, and I think this car in this condition with this miles and with this presentation deserved the quote unquote treatment, because I think it would have resulted in a greater stake of equity for the seller and his family. So JP, cool car. I love to drive these things. I've driven one, I think just once or twice. They are an absolute hoot. I actually think it's stunning to look at. I love this car. The car, the RX-8 or whatever it was with those little suicide doors, the car that came after this was such a huge disappointment, because this car to me really hit the tone of the 90s on the head. And I've always been a fan of this car. It's depressing to me that they're not considered like long-term reliable, like a similar generation Porsche would be. Because I would love to buy one of these, but I don't know if I want to buy a car that could let go on me at some point. And I imagine getting parts for these is getting increasingly more difficult. But JP, I'm a huge fan. This is a special model. It's terrible. Like the engine compartment, for sake of argument, is filthy. The car looks like it's been driven on a dirt road half of its life. Somebody should have gone and detailed the hell out of it, maybe even done the dry ice treatment underneath it. I think if they would have made this car and tarted it up, we'd be looking at a car that would potentially represent the top of the market for the calendar year. And instead, this car is sort of just an also ran on Bring a Trailer. And I think that's a missed opportunity for possibly making some serious coin here. Not Bitcoin, but coin. So JP, I present to you a stunning RX-7, but not in stunning presentation. What do you see?
I remember when these came out. Yes, I'm that old, and it really was cool. Mazda was one of those few. They were one of the first dealerships, or not dealerships, but brands that really kind of embraced their heritage. If you recall, during the 90s and the early aughts, for a good solid 20 years or more, Porsche could give an F about anyone who had an old Porsche. When the 993, when I got my first 993, it was probably like 2005 or 6 or something like that. And you go into a Porsche dealership in 2005 and say you had a 993. They wouldn't even, most of the guys on the floor didn't even know what that was. They were like, what? Or if you ask, hey, I need parts for, my SC, the guy behind the parts counter was just like, oh gosh, right? Not one of these old Porsche guys. Porsche just two double birds to the heritage of Porsche. Now, of course, they've figured it out now. Kudos to Porsche, and they've completely embraced their heritage. Mazda, in 1993, when this car was contemporary, when it was brand new, when they were advertising this on TV, their commercial had shots of old RX-7s in it. The original ones, and then the next generation one, and then this car. And they were showing cars going around corners sideways before drifting was even something that even a term, right? They talked about a true sports car, that this car really was built to be a true sports car, and they really are that great to drive. I absolutely love getting behind the wheel of one of these. I had the good fortune of driving DIY Mike's right-hand drive car around the Red Rock Loop a couple of years ago when I had my 993 cab, and he handed me the key. We swapped keys and did a run. And his car was set up perfectly, and that thing, it's just like, it reminded me, oh my God, I forgot how good these are, right? And honestly, it was like it drove every bit as good as the Porsche, if not better. But unfortunately, you're 100% correct, Deeb, when you talk about reliability. You compare this to that, Ferrari that we talked about at the front of the show. These are just as difficult to get parts for and to maintain, because there's just you can find Ferrari mechanics, but good luck finding someone that can work on a Wankel or, these rotary engines are really, really, really difficult to find technicians, because Porsche has embraced their heritage. There's tons of people getting into that business and learning, and there's a new crop, a new generation of young people who are learning how to work on old Porsches. I don't see that in the rotary engine world, right? I mean, it's just going to be fewer and fewer and fewer people who know how to do anything with one of these. And then it's pretty much the only people who are going to buy them is like our buddy Sahan, who's going to LS swap it or something. What do we think this car is going to bring? Do we think it'll get up to the price of a single Bitcoin? What do we think?
All right, JP. So our car is currently let's go back. Let's start this from the beginning. My bad. All right, here we go. JP, according to classic.com, the average selling price for an RX-7 with the R1 package is $55,900. Our car is currently sitting at $33,000, and that comes to us by way of just 7 bids. However, our car does not close until 3 more days from now. JP, I think if this car were in better cosmetic condition, and again, it doesn't look like it's been hit. The paint looks fine. The interior looks fine. But this car needs a professional detail. It needs to be cleaned under the hood. They need to dry ice it underneath and then shine those wheels and tires, and then get professional photography. If this car was brought to market, I'm thinking this car touches 70 grand. High 60s, mid 70s, easy. But JP, in this presentation, I think that there's not going to be enough views on the site because not enough people will notice how special this car actually is. And with that in mind, JP, I think our car is going to hammer for just $59,000. JP, I dare you to go over me on this one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I am certainly embracing the spirit of optimism, but I don't think it's gonna get that close to 60. I'm with you. I think it has the potential to be worth much, much more. But you know, how many times have you seen a car dealership? You know, do you follow what is his name, Doty, on the Instagram? He's in your neck of the woods. Monterey. Yeah, he goes around and he's always buying Porsches from people, and then, you know, he sells them at his dealership and stuff like that. And there's something I don't really pay, like I've seen his videos a million times, but I like never watch him with the audio on. Like I just kind of like, you know, cruising through the death scroll, and there's something about his body language that just totally skeezes me out. Like it's like, you can, and I think it's specifically because I watch it without the audio. You're not hearing the back and forth. He just has that, like, it's like the used car guy from the movie Fargo, right? You know, he just kind of like sits there and stares at the floor, waiting for his customers to bend to his will, right? I just feel like there's a vulture aspect to this thing. There's like, he's just like that buzzard flying around. Oh, somebody died. Let's go see if we can pick the carcass and get this car and then go sell it for more money. It's icky, right? I mean, I get it. Car dealerships, that's how they got to make, you know, that's how they make business. That's how they stay in businesses. They got to buy cars for less and make more money on them. Even our good friends at Godden Classic, I mean, they have to get their cars and they have to... They have to provide value for their customers. And the thing is, this particular car reminds me of why sometimes that model works and is ethical, because here's the person that got this car from their loved one who passed, right? It's the son or daughter, and they're trying to sell this car, and they're just doing everything wrong. They're not professionals. They don't know anything about this stuff, clearly. They know that they've got a special car because they know their dad liked it, but they really don't know why. This is why when you have a car like this, it's better to find a professional, find one that treats you well and gives you a fair price, and let them take the car and bring it back to life. This car should be, I'm with you, like if Supras are worth all the money in the world, $100,000, if 300Zs are coming up now, if all these, you know, Japanese supercars are bringing the big, what do you call it, young timer money, this car should be right at the top of the list. And it's just a failure to launch. And that's because, unfortunately, the sellers didn't go out and find someone that really does know what they're doing. So my number, yours was 59. I'm going to go 51.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. $51,007, and just say, and I don't know if it's going to fail to sell. Hopefully the sellers have a reasonable expectation, but yeah, I'm definitely way under. I just think the presentation is too dang awful. And like you said, it's going to get, it's just going to get missed, right? People are just going to pass over.
That's what I think.
You know, some of the folks in the comments, go ahead.
JP, I'm just going to read this to you really quick. It's got 5,000 views and 686 watchers. This should be in this condition, this should be a 15 to 20,000 views, and you should have, you know, over 1,500 watchers. You know, people that are
just like our show.
This auction. Yeah, and it just doesn't, and it's because it looks like any other RX-7, and it's not. This is a really special car, and in a good market, JP, this could be pushing 6 figures. But it's not a great market, but it should do better than it's going to do here.
Yeah. All right, let us know what you guys think. Does this car represent a very good opportunity? Maybe someone can get it cheap. maybe at that lower number.
Yeah.
Even if you got it at 60 grand, could you do all the things and get another $20, $30, $40,000, $10,000? I don't know. Or do you just buy a Bitcoin and make the money there? Let us know in the comments. We got another car to make a prediction on. What do we got?
All right, JP. My disclaimer for this is I picked this car first, Yuri. So Yuri sent this to the text chain today, this afternoon, and I had selected this car hours earlier in the day, but Yuri doesn't get any credit for this one. This is a 1985 Land Rover Range Rover two-door with a manual transmission. JP, is this not the coolest car for Vegas ever? Like, I know it's an unreliable piece of boat anchor, but come on, from a romantic standpoint, this with some like slightly more masculine wheels, and maybe like an exhaust system and some light bar on top, this would be so dope. I just loved looking at the photos of this car, and I know how much you, being a Washington Lake boy from your youth before you were a Seattlean or Seattleian or whatever you guys call yourselves up there. This is a really interesting car. JP, it's on Bring a Trailer, offered out of Haskell, New Jersey, showing 185,000 kilometers, which is about 115,000 miles. JP, this car was first born in the UAE and was imported into the United States in 2023 from the United Arab Emirates. Very interesting provenance on this car. And despite, the fair mileage, the interior of this car, JP, looks really, really clean. So obviously the person who owned this car had means and took very good care of it. So despite the miles, and there's not that many of them, this car looks to be in outstanding condition. JP, here's a piece of information I bet you didn't know. These quote unquote Series 1 Range Rovers are powered by a 3.5 liter V8 that makes about 154 horsepower. In fact, that's what it says on the American ones. This one is implying that it might only have 124 horsepower. I imagine the torque number is significantly bigger, but I didn't do the homework to find out what it is. I'm not sure. I'm not suggesting that this car will feel slow, but it's not going to feel fast. And despite having a big stonking V8, these don't make a lot of power. But JP, the undercarriage photos of this car make it look like it was refurbished. It looks almost new underneath. The car is in excellent condition. It's a model that I am relatively sure they never brought to the U.S., a two-door Range Rover with a manual and a gasoline engine in outstanding condition. The car is on a New Jersey title, here's an interesting tidbit, which I'm just picking up because I didn't do any homework. Apparently, it's sold on Bring a Trailer. No, it was listed on Bring a Trailer in September, where it was bid to $38,000, where it failed to sell. So we missed it last time around, JP, with the exact same assets. It failed to sell at $38,000. And that was on 24 bids. I'm going to confess right now that $38,000 was way over my bid this time around. So I don't have any inkling that would suggest that I think this guy is going to do better than he did last time. But I don't want to spoil the results. So JP, what do you think? Any love for that generation of Range Rover? I know when we first started to do the show, we did a lot more SUVs, and I feel like we covered some pretty cool old Range Rovers back in the day. But recently we've been so car heavy. It's been a long time since we've reviewed one of these. This might be one of the coolest ones I've ever seen. I just dig the two-door configuration and that sort of stubby, short wheelbase, and just think that this looks like a sophisticated K5 Blazer. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to have the same motor, but Jesus, if you could pick it up for 38, wouldn't it be worth the LS swap? And then you'd have something to really talk about. So JP, your thoughts, you know these better than I do. What do you see here that maybe I'm missing? What educate our audience and myself, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I mean, there's not much to them. You're right about it being similar to like an old K5, because I mean, like, what's great about this era of the Rover is that it doesn't have power windows. It doesn't have power seats. It doesn't have all the luxurious stuff that they put on these in the late 80s and early 90s with all the Lucas electronics. I mean, this car is still going to not be the most reliable thing in the world for sure, but at least it has fewer components that are going to break on you. You're right, they have no power. Isn't this the vehicle that Jeremy Clarkson drove in one of the early seasons of Top Gear when I think they went through South America or something like that? And Hammond had like a Land Cruiser or something.
I'll just blindly say yes. And
sure,
and
why
Clarkson
not?
would
Yeah.
be Clarkson would be the most apologetically English of the selections, whereas Hammond would take a car from Japan. So yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much fun that it's a manual, and I love it. Duncan's like, yeah, you'll need to some big rubber farm boots. This belongs on Clarkson's farm, right? Definitely not in Vegas though, because this thing don't have no AC. So you could drive it for about 5 or 6 months. But the hot season, you just have to park it. I mean, it's just that fishbowl into just. I love old rangies like this because the glass is just so high. Your elbows down here, it's almost like driving a convertible. I want this hard, but I'm not going to bid on it because it's going to bring a bunch of, I don't necessarily think it's going to bring a bunch of money, but everyone in everyone's mentioned that this thing failed to sell recently, so I think the seller has either unreasonable expectations or is also in the spirit of optimism that I am and thinks that now's the time, since it's failed to sell a couple times on Haggerty and BAT, that maybe they'll get all the money for it going into winter. And the fact that it's in New Jersey would normally scare me, but it's not probably all rusty because it came from the UAE. What's it going to bring? What do you think?
All right, JP. So here's the thing. Classic.com says that the average selling price for a Series 1 Range Rover, which would be a 4-door automatic with power everything that could theoretically be more problematic, and most of your average cars are going to have a ton of miles on them. The average selling price for one of these things is $24,700. But this isn't one of those things. This is different. This is a rest of the world model that we never got here, being a 2-door and with a manual transmission. And as JP was saying, there's a lot more analog features on this car because it's not a North American car. So this is in a place where people don't mind. They're not, they don't think luxury. They just think roll up windows will get the job done. JP, according to Haggerty, a really nice condition of one of these Series 1 standard Range Rovers is a $50,000 car in excellent condition. This is in excellent condition, and I have a sneaky suspicion this seller is looking for $50,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Steve, let's get to a number. We got to go. We are almost at the end of the show. So let's do a power number. What's your number of this? And then we'll do another car, and we'll literally spend a minute on it. What are we getting?
All right, I'm going to go 33,000 and think that it fails to sell. What's your number?
I'm going to go 37.5 and say it also fails to sell. All right, and we're going to do this last car.
5.
You literally have 30 seconds on this last car, Deeb.
All right, so JP, Doug DeMiro is trying to sell a 2015 911 GT3 with just 22,900 miles out of Arizona. I'm sorry, a clean Arizona title, but the car is located in Henderson. JP, being a 2015, it doesn't necessarily have an engine swap. It's got fair miles, ceramic brakes, and bucket seats. John, the average selling price for, according to Classic.com, is $127,000. I like this car because it's got buckets and ceramics. I'm going to go $128,000. What's your bid?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I'm going to go a little over, but not by much. I'm going to go, what would you say? What'd you say? What?
128 was my bid.
I'll go 130.
At-
I'll go 130,991. Be careful if you're bidding on this thing because the engines blow up. All right, so that is our show tonight. We're kind of we're almost done to the hour. What do you guys think of a Thursday night show? Did you like Thursday better than Wednesday? And let us know. Would you buy this GT3 or would you get Bitcoin? What do you think is going to be the better investment? We will talk more at length about this GT3 when we reconcile our bids this Sunday night. Michael Deeb, thank you very much. Thanks, Nerd Herd, for joining us on an off night. And we will see you at our regular time Sunday at 6:30. Thanks, nerds. Bye, guys. We'll take it out with our good friends at Godden. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk